The incredible moment a son's violence was stopped by Jesus, transforming his life forever. The bar buzzed with laughter and the steely clink of glasses, each sound tightening around Jake like a noose. Another summer evening in small-town Texas, the kind where shadows elongated and the heat clung to the skin like a reminder of past choices. Jake, age 22, polished the bar top, staring at a reflection he barely recognized. Anger marked his features, but pain flickered behind his eyes. It churned within, an invisible storm, birthed from his childhood, where love was a battlefield and safety a myth. With deafening roars, his parents fought until their love sputtered and collapsed into silence. He was lost in the storm of his thoughts, pouring whiskey with an expertise built from countless nights spent drowning his demons. Girls laughed, friends teased, but none broke through the bubble of isolation enveloping him. At nights like this, he felt stripped bare, exposed, searching for a remedy in the bottom of empty glasses. And yet, with every smile thrown his way, he recoiled. Fear clawed at him, the fear of connection, of love, of the inevitable betrayal he had suffered too many times before. Then he saw her, Mary, his mother. Her silhouette stood at the entrance, a warning bell chiming in his heart. Jake's stomach turned. He was a wanderer without a map. She was the haunting specter from his past, determined to drag him back into the light. He could already feel the tension crackle through the air. It pulsed as she made her way, shoulders hunched like someone expecting a fight. As she called out to him, a painful turmoil twisted inside him. She tenderly reached out, but behind her hope lay the weight of his shame. "Jake, please, I've been worried about you." A vicious wave of anger broke free. "Worried? You don't get to be worried. You left." The accusation belted through the bar, silencing conversations and drawing the focus of the room. His body tensed, fists clenched tight. She didn't come for him, not out of pity. She came to save him, and that thought suffocated him. Before the fallout could escalate, an elderly figure moved toward them through the thickening tension. Mr. Thompson, the town's forgotten pastor, radiating a calm that made Jake's blood boil as if it were blasphemy. How dare he intervene? "I see you, Jake," Mr. Thompson began, his voice steady against the chaos. "I know the weight you carry, but what if you didn't have to carry it alone?" Each word felt like a hammer on cold iron, reshaping Jake's chaotic thoughts, but he recoiled from the vulnerability it threatened to expose. A suffocating silence clung to the bar, testing his resolve. It resonated with his anguish, the memories flashing, the outburst of rage, the fights, the loneliness. Just when it seemed impossible to contain the duality of desire for release and fear of rejection, his mind raced out of control. He thought of his fists and their violent stories. Could he really let go? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The raw turmoil swirled within him, a blaring contradiction. Should he keep the facade of strength or shatter it to reveal the fragility lurking beneath? Mr. Thompson placed a hand on his shoulder, and it felt like an anchor dragging him toward the abyss. Jake inhaled sharply, but he could hear only silence, reflecting the battle between the past and the uncertain road ahead. Just as the weight of that moment threatened to crush him, another explosion of chaos jolted the bar. Laughter turned to shouting as a group at the back erupted into conflict. Jake stood poised on the edge of a precipice, battling both his own demons and the chaos spiraling around him. Could he finally break free from the shackles of his life, or would anger continue to dictate his fate? The answers lingered just out of reach as uncertainty churned violently in his gut. The chaos intensified, screams erupting from the back, shattering the fragile moment. Jake's heart raced, every cell in his body screaming for release. He should join the fray, let adrenaline fuel his fists, but instead he stood paralyzed. Would lashing out offer the escape he craved, or would it lead him deeper into the ink-black abyss? The irony twisted his gut. In the past, fighting was his lifeline. Now, it felt like a chain binding him tighter. Mr. Thompson's grip remained solid on his shoulder, grounding him amidst the roaring universe. The old man's eyes reflected decades of compassion. "You don't have to choose violence," he urged, as though seeing through Jake's layers of defense, revealing the trembling soul beneath. "You can choose to be better." The contrast stood stark in Jake's mind. Better? A nebulous dream he couldn't touch. He was the product of pain. Was that all he could ever be? Each day he fought against the odds, and yet they kept winning, reminding him of his failures. Anger surged again, dancing with doubt, teasing him to let go of the fragile hope that was trying to anchor him. The shouting in the bar intensified, and Jake flinched. A dirty fight unfolded, two men swinging fists recklessly, grasping for dominance in the familiar choreography of violence. Jake's breath hitched. The escalation stoked the fire in him, memories of past confrontations flickering in his mind like a disjointed film reel. He could see himself in every punch thrown, every snarl associated with anger, blinded. But then a whisper of clarity broke through. The image of the men fighting morphed, shifting into the younger Jake, overloaded with rage, flailing in desperation for recognition, for something more. He didn't want to be that boy anymore, yet retreating felt just as weak as engaging. What if I don't know how to change? It was a question that reverberated painfully against the bar's stained surface. Suddenly, something shifted within him. The power to choose was still there, hidden under layers of pain, yet alive, like embers in a dying fire. Could one small choice ignite them back into flame? Jake's focus bounced back to Mr. Thompson, who was watching him with the patience of a seasoned warrior. "What can you do?" The pastor's voice cut through the haze, a simple probing that unraveled Jake's tangled feelings. He exhaled, rallying his thoughts. I don't know." The vulnerability felt raw, yet refreshing. He didn't need to have all the answers. At that moment, amidst chaos, Jake realized he didn't have to fight alone, nor did he need to carry the weight of the past on his own. Questions lingered. What if he confronted his anger instead? Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the bar erupted into a new wave of chaos, drawing all eyes. The two fighters had crashed into a table, sending glasses clattering dangerously close to him, reigniting the paralysis. The room watched, expectant, a collective breath taken, as if everyone sensed his inner battle. This was the crossroads, the moment that could define him. Would he dive into chaos and tradition, or dare to carve a new path? He glanced at Mr. Thompson and caught a glimmer of resolve in the man's gaze. Jake swallowed hard, feeling the adrenaline pump through him, intertwined with uncertainty. Maybe it's not just about letting go of anger, he pondered, his voice barely steady above the din. Maybe it's about understanding who I am without it. The conflict spiraling around him receded slightly as he clung to the thought, the pulse of clarity growing stronger. Could he learn to face not only his past violence, but also his future choices? As the fight continued to escalate, he took a tentative step toward the chaos, a heartbeat of hope resonating within him. The struggle with his identity stretched out before him, a blank canvas marred by willful strokes of anger. He breathed deeply, realizing that understanding this fight would require a strength far greater than violence. The bar's atmosphere shifted again, charged with uncertainty. In that moment, an unfamiliar courage ignited inside him, propelling him to confront not just the chaos around him, but also the tighter storm brewing within. And beneath the chaos lay the dawning thought: Perhaps in this nocturnal theater of violence lay the keys to rediscovering his true self. The lingering question filled his mind, igniting a need for exploration, pushing him toward the next crucial step. Who exactly was Jake without his anger? Amidst the shouting, one lingering certainty remained. The moment of truth loomed, and the fight was far from over. Jake's entire being felt suspended, time stretching as he absorbed the chaos unfolding before him. The serving staff ducked for cover, and patrons divided into factions, some egging on the fight, others urging restraint. Each heartbeat echoed the growing turbulence in his mind, a battle of hesitation and the primal urge to engage. But as he stood on that precipice, the undercurrent of his existence tugged at him, a reminder that his life had always revolved around violence, yet here was an opportunity to pivot. He locked eyes with Mr. Thompson, whose unwavering steadiness anchored him amidst the storm. "You can choose to be better," the pastor had said, and those words rolled over in Jake's mind like a confession. Better, or just different. He could be more than just the sum of his past mistakes. The distinct sound of a crack echoed from the center of the fray, shattering glass beneath the combatant's feet. Immediately, his impulse twisted toward intervention. What if he joined in? The thought blasted through him like a shot of adrenaline. Yet another flame flickered. Maybe what he sought wasn't validation achieved through violence. Maybe it was found in stepping beyond expectation. Jake moved, but not towards the brawl. The astral pull of violence waned as his instincts directed him to intervene without escalating the conflict. He approached the men with a deep, stabilizing breath, grounding himself as he drew nearer. "Stop!" His voice carried over the din, ringing with conviction. It caught the fighters off guard. Two pairs of eyes turned towards him, confusion sparking amidst their fury. This was a new ground. It felt exhilarating to assert himself not through rage but through presence. "What do you know about it?" one fighter snarled, cocking a fist. "I know it hurts," Jake replied, his voice steady. "I've hurt others and been hurt, but fighting it out here won't change a damn thing." The bar fell into silence, tension ripping through the air, and with it came an odd clarity. He recognized the fear and anger pulsing not just through him, but through every person present, concealed under layers crafted by individual histories. A flicker of recognition crossed the initialization of the second fighter's features. "So what? You want us to just stand down?" "No," Jake said, shaking his head. "I want you to recognize that this isn't where you find strength. It's in understanding your pain, confronting it on your own terms instead of lashing out. I've been lost too. You don't have to stay there." With each word, Jake felt the weight of his past begin to lift. Perhaps this was the first step in understanding who he truly was without his anger, by confronting it face to face, not just in the context of violence, but in vulnerability. Breaches in his own emotional armor became pathways to clarity as he communicated genuine fear and honest rebellion against a world that had always prodded him toward conflict. Slowly, the fighter lowered his fist, his eyes searching Jake's for something he desperately needed: understanding. It was there, illuminated against the backdrop of chaos. Reciprocity ignited. Individuals around them started to respond to the unfolding moment, shifting from eager hostility to tentative contemplation. Suddenly, he recognized the ripple effect. Others disarmed their tensions, and the hum of uncertainty blended into something resembling hope. They began to look at one another, reflecting on their own struggles without hesitation. In that charged moment, Jake grasped the guidance Mr. Thompson had offered him. Maybe this was how transformation began, not with brute force, but with a gentle beacon of shared experience that connected him with others while leading them away from blind aggression. As the bar settled into an unexpected calm, Jake knew he had uncovered something profound within himself, a step into the man he wished to become. But beneath the soft glow of newfound awareness
lurked many unanswered questions, reminding him this journey was only beginning. How could he continue this change? And what would emerge from the embers of his former self? The resounding quietude shifted once again as tension lingered palpably, leaving Jake on the threshold of deeper understanding. Was he ready to face the hard truths waiting just around the corner? He inhaled sharply, fully aware that the path he walked led straight into the unknown. Jake stood in the aftermath, his heart still racing, but now fueled by a different energy. He felt a lingering tension in the air that was foreign to him, a charge not of impending violence, but of unforeseen potential. The very act of stepping up, of prioritizing understanding over aggression, had ignited a new flame within him. Yet questions loomed larger than ever. What did it mean to be better? What steps must he take to truly transform? As conversations resumed in subdued tones, Jake shifted away from the initial chaos, finding solace in a dim corner of the bar. He needed space to reflect, to dissect the moment, and comprehend the layers of emotion he had stirred. He hadn't just intervened in a fight, he had unveiled a part of himself that he scarcely understood. Vulnerability seemed to shake hands with courage in that instant, and he felt an unprecedented urge to explore this duality further. He recalled Mr. Thompson's voice echoing in his mind. You can choose to be better. But what did better look like? In attempting to supplant his old identity rooted in violence, he risked losing a part of himself altogether. Could he reconcile his past with the hopes for a future that wasn't clouded by anger? The bar's lighting dimmed further, and shadows flickered across the room. A bartender, a woman with an unyielding gaze, caught his eye. She looked familiar, but Jake took a moment to place her. It was Beth. They had mingled briefly before the chaos had erupted, and he suddenly found himself wanting to reconnect, to see if she might shed additional light on his experience and offer perspective. "Hey," he called out as she wiped down the counter. As she turned towards him, her face softened. A flicker of recognition crossed her features. "Jake, right?" she approached with cautious curiosity. "Yeah," he murmured, slightly embarrassed at the reminder of his earlier self. "I wanted to apologize for everything that just happened. That wasn't what I intended." Her eyebrow arched, skepticism coloring her expression. "But you were the one who stopped it." "Maybe," he said, pausing to gather his thoughts. "But I feel like I just stumbled into that moment. I don't want to be that guy anymore, the one who only knows how to fight." "That's a start," she replied, crossing her arms. "But it takes more than a single moment to change. You've got to commit to it." Simultaneously exhilarated and daunted, Jake questioned if he had the strength to maintain this course. What does commitment look like? Beth leaned against the bar, her demeanor shifting from guarded to earnest. "It starts with self-reflection. Look at your past, not to dwell in it, but to learn from it. Find the roots of your behavior and confront them." Jake's mind raced with burgeoning realizations. He'd been so focused on the surface, the brawl, the adrenaline, that he had ignored the depths beneath. Anger was merely a symptom, a loud proclamation of deeper wounds he hadn't begun to address. How could he confront the root causes of his violence without succumbing to retreat? "Do you think I can change?" he asked, vulnerability igniting a flicker of fear deep within. "Only if you want it badly enough," she replied, her gaze steady. "You need to be prepared for the hard truths, though. Everything you've avoided will come rushing back. Are you ready for that?" Her question hung suspended between them, igniting a tempest within Jake once more. He knew he had to take ownership of his choices, to forge a path fueled by grit and the desire to evolve. At that moment, he recognized that the journey ahead might require confronting demons he'd long kept buried. "I want to be better," he confessed, feeling the weight of his words settle firmly in place. "I don't want to run from this anymore." As Beth gave a curt nod of acknowledgement, Jake noted a shift within himself. Resolution began to take root, and along with it, A heavy anticipation clouded the surface of his thoughts. He didn't know the depths of his darkness or the full reach of his potential, but one thing was unmistakable. He was ready to dive into the messiness of it all. Staring into the distance, Jake felt the basement of his life quaking, foretelling rush and revelation. What new truths awaited him? Who would he have to confront next on this winding road of self-discovery? His spirit bristled at the threshold of unwritten chapters, even in the face of fear. Change was not merely on the horizon. It was inescapably upon him, and he knew that true transformation lay beyond the shadows he had so long avoided. But could he survive the reckoning that awaited him? The thought sent shivers through him, a quiet echo that promised both uncertainty and unfathomable possibility. Jake left the bar that night with a peculiar mix of trepidation and hope. The atmosphere outside felt different, the air charged with a fresh sense of possibility. He made his way home, each step echoing with the weight of Beth's words. What lay ahead would not be easy, but he recognized that the resistance he felt in his gut was not just fear. It was the burgeoning understanding that deep-rooted change came from facing truths he had long refused to confront. He slipped into his apartment, the familiar walls closing in around him once more. This space had been a haven for his anger, a nesting ground for the shadows of his past. The hoarded remnants of old furniture, the remnants of old life echoed around him. As he walked past the worn-out couch, he paused, allowing himself to be consumed by the reality of his surroundings. It was then that he spotted the old boxing gloves hanging by the door. A visceral surge of emotion coursed through him. Anger, regret, and a smattering of nostalgia. They had been his tools of defense, a weapon against a world he perceived as hostile. But as he stared at them, he recognized them as symbols of his past, not tools for the future he craved. There could be no true transformation without letting go. With resolve, he took the gloves down and held them tightly in his fists. The tactile memory of their weight reminded him of the battles he had fought, both in the ring and out. But the ring wasn't where he needed to be anymore. In an impulsive sweep of determination, he moved toward the trash can. It was a simple act, but it felt monumental. The second he let go of those gloves, he was flooded with an unexpected sense of liberation. It was a tangible manifestation of his commitment to change, a first step away from the violence he had clung to like a lifeline. Yet as he took a deep breath, Jake realized that this was only the beginning. Change would require more than tossing away old symbols. It would demand a relentless self-examination. He needed a plan. His eyes roamed over the clutter of his apartment, through the shadows beneath the surface. Each object was a silent witness to his anger, a reminder that the path forward would not be paved by denial. He pulled out his phone and dialed Mr. Thompson's number, his mentor, and the one person who had always believed in the potential hidden beneath his tough exterior. "Mr. Thompson, I need to talk," he said when the call connected, his voice steady and earnest. "I want to learn how to channel my energy. I want to confront my demons."
"Good," Mr. Thompson replied, the warmth in his voice bolstering Jake's resolve. "Meet me at the gym tomorrow morning. We'll start the journey together." Tomorrow loomed like an uncharted territory, filled with uncertainty, but also promise. As he hung up, Jake suddenly felt the flood of emotions that he had learned to manage crash over him. The urgency of anxiety twisted in his stomach. What if he failed? What if he found nothing but the darkness he feared? He reminded himself of Beth's warning about hard truths. The awareness that his fight was more than physical was becoming clearer. It would be psychological. He would have to dig deeper than he had ever dared. His past would not be easily exorcised, but he was finally willing to approach it head-on. That night, rest eluded him. Darkness settled around him, holding his mind captive. He mulled over what confronting his past would actually entail. Would he have to visit the places that haunted him? Would he face people he had wronged? Each thought was an invitation to anxiety, but simultaneously a spark of determination ignited within. And as dawn broke, Jake found himself waking with the fired determination of a man destined to reclaim his life from the grip of violence and anger. Inspiration surged through his veins, almost golden in its purity. He dressed quickly, the smell of fresh coffee from the cafe next door barely registering as he prepared himself for the gym. Every moment spent in his old life now felt like an illusion, flimsy and temporary. But what awaited him at the gym? Would he find clarity, or would he uncover layers of pain he had hidden beneath his bravado? Jake walked through the threshold, the neon lights illuminating the path ahead, yet shadowing the truth that lay in waiting on the other side. The time had come to confront not only his past, but also the person he desperately wished to become. What truths would the gym reveal about him? Who would he have to face within the steel of its walls? As he stepped forward, a new resolve filled him. Grit and anticipation mingled into a potent cocktail of determination. This journey was just beginning, and with every heartbeat, he felt the rhythm of a renewed purpose. What awaited inside the gym could either make or break him. He was ready, wasn't he? The gym was alive with a hum of activity, the air thick with the smell of sweat and the sound of muffled grunts. Jake stepped inside, the environment swirling around him in a mix of memories and possibilities. As he made his way to the training area, the clang of weights and the rhythmic thud of feet hitting the canvas beckoned him like a siren song. Mr. Thompson was there, his presence a steady anchor amidst the chaos. He was already warming up, his form impeccable, exuding a confidence that Jake admired yet found intimidating. Each movement of his mentor seemed to tell a story of discipline and unwavering commitment. Jake swallowed hard, feeling the stark contrast between their shared history and where he stood now, a man on the brink of change but drenched in self-doubt. "Glad you made it, Jake," Mr. Thompson called out, his voice full of encouragement. "Ready to face what you've been running from?" Jake nodded, but his heart raced at the implications of those words. Confronting his demons meant more than just physical exertion. He would need to face the mental barriers he had built himself. Today, he might have to dive into the depths of his vulnerability, something that terrified him. "Let's start with some basic drills," Mr. Thompson suggested, leading Jake to the boxing ring that felt both foreign and familiar, a place where his past self once thrived but had since been overshadowed by insecurity and regret. "Find your rhythm, feel the energy." As they shadowboxed, Jake's movements were hesitant. The memories flooded in, each punch an echo of the anger he harbored over the years. With every jab, he also felt pieces of his anger subside, cleaned with each breath. Mr. Thompson noticed, stepping closer, his voice still commanding but nurturing. "Breathe, Jake. That's the power of focus. Let the anger become energy. Channel it wisely." Jake refocused, digging deeper into every movement. He felt the adrenaline pulse through him, his muscles firing like a high-voltage machine. He matched Mr. Thompson's pace, feeling the intensity build. The distractions faded, but beneath the sweat and exertion, doubts clawed at his mind. What if I never change? The question gnawed at the edges of his concentration, threatening to unravel everything he was trying to build. He quickly redirected his energy, forcing the thought into the periphery. "Now, let's talk about those gloves," Mr. Thompson said, nodding toward a pair hanging on the wall, the same type Jake had discarded. "Sometimes you need to let your past guide you, not define you." Jake tightened his fists, grappling with the weight of those words. His past had lived with him for far too long, like an unwelcome guest. Perhaps there was a way to reclaim that part of himself without the dark undercurrents. "Imagine every punch you throw is a release," Mr. Thompson urged, taking Jake's moment of reflection and morphing it into motivation. "Visualize who you want to be. Let go of the hurt, but learn from it." With each punch, Jake started to shift his frame of mind.
He began picturing all the opportunities, all the relationships he had severed, and how much he genuinely wanted to mend things, not just externally, but within himself first. He could feel something unlocking, a transformation beginning to take place. As they continued, Jake discovered an unexpected resilience growing within him. Moments of frustration were joined by epiphanies. Each jab and cross could become a metaphor for standing up to his past, refusing to be confined by older identities. Suddenly, the idea of facing the people he had wronged did not seem as
suffocating. It became a challenge, a step toward making amends. After a grueling session, Jake leaned against the ropes, panting heavily, but exhilarated. There was fire within him, sparked by that profound shift. Mr. Thompson approached him, an assessment in his eyes. "You've got determination, Jake, but remember, a fighter learns not just to punch, but to listen to the rhythm of the fight. Don't ignore the lessons from your past." Jake nodded, but the thought stirred something new within. What did he truly want to listen for? Would it be the lingering voices from the past, or the ones guiding him forward? Each choice he faced now felt monumental, a clear fork in a road he had long avoided. The fear of failing was still present, but it was beginning to intertwine with a budding excitement. Yet, as they wrapped up the session, Mr. Thompson dropped a final question. "Are you ready to face the people you've hurt? Because it's coming, Jake. It's part of the process." The weight of that question sent Jake's heart racing anew. He was standing on the precipice, filled with both dread and a fiery determination to leap forward. What awaited him on the other side? Would he be ready to confront those shadows in his life? The next morning, Jake awoke with a mix of anxiety and determination swirling in his mind. The gym sessions still echoed in his thoughts. The clarity he had experienced while shadowboxing served as both a revelation and a burden. The conversation with Mr. Thompson replayed endlessly, particularly the challenge of facing those he'd hurt. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he found himself questioning how much longer he could avoid his past. There was a spark of clarity in that thought. It was a simple realization that his past was not merely a collection of errors, but a series of lessons laden with complexity. The weight of those mistakes felt lighter now, and the idea of confronting them morphed from an overwhelming dread into an intriguing possibility. He glanced at his reflection in the mirror. The man staring back was someone he barely recognized, a fighter emerging from the shadows of his former self. There were still remnants of self-doubt lurking, but he refused to let fear dictate his actions any longer. Today was not just another day. As he prepared for the day, he felt compelled to take action. The first call he made was to his mother. It had been months since they had spoken, her disappointment still thunderous in the spaces between them. They had fought, leading him to retreat into silence, yet something in him seemed to push against that instinct. Perhaps this was where healing could start. Perhaps it was time to pick up the phone. "Hey, Mom," he said when she picked up, his heart pounding. For an instant, it felt as if the air had thickened around him. I know it's been a while." "Jake?" Her voice was cautious, tinged with a mixture of relief and wariness. After a brief pause, she pressed on. "Are you okay?" "I'm working on it," he replied, each word feeling heavy with unspoken history. "I want to talk, really talk." It struck him then. His desire to confront the consequences of his actions was not merely about seeking forgiveness, but rather about truly understanding the tightrope walk of their relationship. "I've made mistakes, Mom. I know that, and I want to try to fix things, if you're open to it." When she hesitated, Jake felt the raw panic rise. What if she refused? What if the walls they'd built remained unchanged? But he pressed forward, reminding himself of his training. "I've started training again, and it's helped, physically and mentally. There's so much I want to share." There was a moment where silence reigned, punctuated only by the distant sounds of life happening around him. Finally, she spoke, her voice more tender, yet still guarded. "I'd like that, Jake. But it's not just about talking. It's about being willing to face what's happened."
Her words struck him like a punch, and suddenly the apprehension faded. If he had gained any insight from boxing, it was this: preparation was key, and vulnerability could be a strength. They agreed to meet later that afternoon, a small step but significant enough to set off ripples of change within him. As he hung up the phone, a mixture of fear and exhilaration coursed through him. He was still standing at that fork in the road, but now clarity began to envelop the path forward. This route would require accountability and patience, an unwillingness to retreat into anger or shame. He headed to the gym once more, hopeful that the power of movement could fortify him for the confrontation he had chosen to embrace. Each punch he threw felt purposeful, not as a release of pent-up anger, but as a metaphor for his journey into authenticity. With each movement, Jake fought not just his opponents, but also the specters of his former self. Later that evening, as he sat in front of the cafe where he and his mother had agreed to meet, he felt the creeping anxiety return. What if he stumbled over his words? What if she felt justified in her resentment? He rubbed his palms together, grounding himself in the moment, reciting the mantra Mr. Thompson had instilled: "Listen to the rhythm of the fight." When his mother arrived, her face bore the traces of worry interspersed with hope. At that moment, Jake grasped the profound reality ahead of him. It wasn't just a talk, it was a reckoning. Would he find the strength to truly face his past, not just for himself, but for the two of them? As he opened the door to their reunion, the answer lay just beyond the threshold, and the fight had only begun. The door swung open, and Jake was met not only by the sight of his mother, but by the tangle of emotions that rushed through him like a tidal wave. They exchanged tentative glances, both searching for reassurance in the other's eyes. The air was thick as Jake motioned for her to sit. The moment felt strangely surreal. All the missed conversations, the stifled apologies, loomed large. "Thanks for coming," he said, the heaviness of the words rooted in an earnest intent. Each syllable felt akin to a full-on jab, aimed at the core of their fractured relationship. As they settled into their seats, he noticed the way her hands trembled slightly, and it mirrored his own inner quake. This wasn't merely a casual meeting, it was a crucible. "I'm glad I did." She met his gaze, and though her voice held firmness, he could hear the underlying crack of vulnerability. "I didn't know if you'd actually want to see me." Jake took a deep breath, trying to summon the vulnerability he had promised himself to embrace. "I need to explain everything," he faltered, suddenly acutely aware of the shadows cast by their history. "I can't rewrite the past, but I want to take responsibility for it." Her eyebrows knitted together, an expression of cautious interest. "What does that look like for you, Jake? What do you want from me?" At that moment, he felt as if he were in the ring, poised to strike but also vulnerable to a counterattack. "I need you to know that I'm not the same person I was. I've been training, physically and mentally, and it's made me confront who I was and how I hurt you." The weight of those words landed like a brutal uppercut. He cringed, bracing himself for her potential recoil. "Training?" she echoed, though skepticism tinged her voice. "You think that can erase everything?" The reminder of her hurt spurred an unexpected wave of determination. "No, I don't. But it has forced me to face my demons, including the way I hurt you and others. I know I crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed. What I did wasn't just wrong, it was devastating." She looked at him, a long, searching look that felt like an eternity. "You're saying you want to change?" "Yes," Jake replied, his voice firmer now, as if bolstered by the countless punches he had thrown in training. "Not just change. I want to learn from those moments and understand them. Understand why they happened and what they say about me." As he spoke, he realized he was peeling back layers, not only for her, but for himself as well. Each word was a maneuver, revealing truths he had hidden not only from others, but from himself. He was coming out swinging, not to defend, but to reclaim. A part of himself he had long buried. "I can hear you," she said softly.
But what guarantees do I have that this isn't just another phase for you? How do I know you'll stick around to do the hard work? Jake's heart raced at the challenge. Yet, in that moment, he understood it perfectly. "I don't expect any guarantees from you," he declared, the weight of honesty uncoiling within him. "But I promise you I'll show up. I'll show up physically, mentally, and emotionally, and prove that I'm committed to this path. It may not be fast, but I want to earn back your trust, piece by piece." The glimmer of hope in her eyes fueled his energy, each word leading them closer to a shared understanding. But doubt lingered in the space between them, serving as an anchor to their shared past. Jake leaned in, sensing he was on the precipice of something significant. "I've started making changes, but the hardest part is owning that I did wrong, and maybe even facing the ones I hurt most. I'm willing to confront them. Am I ready to face the repercussions of my actions? Yes. Am I ready to face myself? I hope so." The flicker of recognition behind his mother's gaze ignited a small but bright flame of hope. Yet, as he contemplated the enormity of what lay ahead, the realization struck him. This confrontation was only the beginning. Now he needed to decide. Would he reach out to those he had harmed? And could he endure the backlash he feared? Because facing the shadows was only part of the fight. He would have to dive deeper into the ring of personal accountability, an arena that demanded not just strength, but courage. As the conversation shifted, Jake felt the tension in his gut coil tighter. This was merely a rehearsal for a greater battle yet to come. The true test was not just fighting for his own redemption, but the challenge of asking those he had wronged to engage in the very dance of confrontation he was now ready to embrace. What awaited him on that horizon could change everything, but this time he felt ready. The real question loomed large in his mind. Would he be able to stand strong and face the ghosts of his past? The sun hung low in the sky the next day, casting long shadows on the ground as Jake paced nervously outside the small coffee shop where he had agreed to meet one of the people he'd wronged. Eric had been his friend, once, before Jake's actions had turned their camaraderie into ashes. He was supposed to be at the forefront of this redemption, but now he felt overwhelmed by doubt. His heart raced as he pushed the door open, the jingle of the bell above adding a dissonant cheerfulness to his tumultuous state of mind. The familiar scent of roasted beans, mixed with the sharp aroma of fresh pastries, irritated his senses. It felt like a gauntlet he needed to walk through. Each table filled with laughter and casual discussions, only amplifying his own anxiety. He spotted Eric at the far window, staring out as if lost in another time. The urge to turn back hit him like a punch in the stomach. But he took a breath. He had promised himself to show up. This was about stepping into accountability, embracing the discomfort that accompanied facing the wounds of the past. Approaching the table, Jake hesitated at the sight of Eric's weathered features. His friend looked older than he remembered, the burdens of disappointment written on his face like lines on a map. Swallowing hard, Jake pulled out the chair opposite him. "Hey, Eric." Eric's gaze shifted slowly, a shadow of recognition flickering in his eyes, quickly replaced with a guarded expression. "Jake." The silence stretched out as Jake grappled with the words that sat heavy on his tongue. There was so much to say, but where to begin? "I wanted to talk to you about everything." "Everything," Eric echoed, skepticism dripping from his tone. "Like trying to relive the past?" "No, not relive. I mean, I'm here to own what I did. I made choices that hurt you, and I can't just pretend it didn't happen." The disgust he felt for his past self tightened his chest further. Looking down at his cup, Eric didn't respond immediately. Instead, he picked at the table surface, his fingers tracing patterns that gave away his unease. Curiosity and anger swirled around in Jake's head, propelling him forward. "I've been training, not just physically. I mean, I'm confronting my demons. I really want to understand why I acted the way I did. Eric finally looked up, eyes narrowed. Do you think that just because you're training yourself into a better person, it erases the past? Do you realize how much you hurt people? Jake's determination faltered momentarily, but he pressed on, desperation unleashing an unexpected surge of vulnerability. I know that. I wish I could change it, but I can't. I want to make amends. I'm here to listen to you and to apologize, truly. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to take responsibility. A tense moment bloomed between them, charged with a mix of skepticism and longing. Jake felt as if the table was a precipice, and he was begging Eric to take that leap with him. I don't know if I can believe that, Eric admitted finally, his voice barely above a whisper. How will I know this isn't just a phase for you? You made promises before. That question cut deep. The echoes of his past mistakes swelled within his mind, reminding him of the countless times he had failed to deliver on assurances. You're right, Jake conceded. It's going to take time to prove to everyone, including myself, that I can be better. Eric leaned back, skepticism still palpable, but the anger seemed to ebb, if only slightly. Then what's your plan? There it was, the thrust of the conversation, going deeper than Jake anticipated. My plan is to confront those I hurt and be honest about what I did. I want to face the repercussions, including potentially losing some people forever. I'm here because you matter to me, even if I don't deserve to say that after everything. As he spoke, a sensation rose within him, an awareness that this was about more than just seeking forgiveness. It was about cultivating his own sense of integrity. He exhaled softly, ready to embrace whatever came next. I can't change what I did, but I can promise to be accountable moving forward, starting with you. Eric processed Jake's words, and for a moment they both lingered in the uncertainty of what could transpire. Jake couldn't predict whether this would lead to reconciliation or create more rifts. What lingered in the air was a mixture of hope and dread, the threads of their past intertwining with a possibility for the future. But as the silence deepened, Jake's mind buzzed with another troubling challenge. Who else needed to hear his truth, and who else might have permission to confront him? In that moment, a bittersweet realization washed over him. This was just the beginning of a much larger fight for redemption. With his heart pounding, Jake understood the true question that remained. Was he genuinely prepared to face every person he'd injured, or would the weight of his past prove too heavy to carry? As the dusk descended over the coffee shop, Jake felt an unfamiliar weight settle in his chest. The talk with Eric had marked a significant milestone, yet the ripple effect was far from over. He knew he needed to continue this path of confrontation, not only facing those he had wronged, but also confronting himself. With a blend of resolve and apprehension, he decided to reach out to another person from his past, Dan. The tension between them had culminated in a particularly explosive moment, resulting in a fallout that had laced every interaction with regret. Standing at his apartment door, he took a deep breath and dialed Dan's number, his previously steadfast resolve now flickering like a candle in the wind. Jake? Dan's voice, laced with hesitation, sent a jolt through him. Yeah, it's me, Jake replied, his voice steady despite the apprehension rolling in waves within him. I wanted to talk. Can we meet? The pause on the other end felt heavier than the question he had posed. Is this about last time? Yes, Jake conceded, the urgency in his tone snapping into focus. I know I messed up. Can we meet? Fine, Dan responded. Meet me at the park in an hour. The decision was made, and with it came a rising tide of emotions that threatened to drown him. Jake prepared for his meeting with Dan by recalling snippets of their friendship, the camaraderie momentarily overshadowed by years of betrayal and anger. There was apprehension in facing the chaos he had sown. Yet at the same time, the prospect of honesty filled him with a flicker of determination. As he walked to the park, he replayed moments of their shared past, laughter echoing like the bursts of light from fireworks, then the darkness, deepening as misunderstandings grew into rifts so vast they threatened to consume them both. It was easy to retreat to old patterns, But this moment represented a new choice to face a painful truth. Arriving at a bench nestled among the towering oaks, Jake spotted Dan leaning back, his arms crossed tight across his chest, the very picture of guardedness. Taking a seat, Jake turned to him, feeling vulnerability tumble forth as he attempted to connect with the man he had hurt. "Thanks for coming," Jake said softly, momentarily surveying the ground before meeting Dan's eyes. "I want to apologize for how I treated you." A moment of silence followed, with Dan shifting slightly but not responding. Fueled by the urgency of their fractured bond, Jake pressed on, allowing all the pent-up emotions to surge forth. "I misunderstood our friendship and let my anger control my actions. I see that now. I truly regret the pain I caused you." Dan regarded him, expression inscrutable. "You think an apology will change things?" Jake leaned forward. "No, I don't expect it to fix everything. I know it's going to take more than words. I'm committed to being that friend you deserved, but I never was." For a fleeting second, Jake caught a hint of sadness cross Dan's features. The guard didn't fully drop, but a crack appeared. "You think you can just atone for everything because you've been through a phase of training?" "I don't think it's just a phase," Jake replied. "This is my chance to confront my past, to learn from it, which has been painful but necessary." The air was thick with the unresolved tension of their shared history. Yet, Jake felt emboldened by the sincerity in his own voice. "I'm asking to be held accountable. I'm ready to face whatever repercussions I have to face, and if it means you don't want to be in my life anymore, then I will respect that." The wind rustled through the trees, a symphony that mirrored the tumultuous emotions coursing through Jake. He knew he might not earn forgiveness today, but the act itself of confronting his past while bearing the weight of vulnerabilities was a tangible manifestation of his growth. Dan sat in silence, allowing the gravity of Jake's words to settle. I need to think," he finally murmured, his expression softening but unresolved. "I understand," Jake replied, feeling a sense of bittersweet closure begin to envelop him. "Just know that whatever you decide, I'm here to take responsibility for what I've done. I want to be better." The conversation shifted into more ground beneath them, the atmosphere between them laid bare. For the first time in a long while, Jake felt as if something was shifting deep within him. This pressure was not the weight of bricks, but the buoyancy of hope, the understanding that confrontation was not solely about seeking acceptance, but about witnessing shared suffering, about exposing old wounds in the light of day. As they parted, ways in tentative silence, Jake knew that he had conquered another layer of his insecurities. Perhaps opening those old wounds could lead not only to healing, but also to forging a new path. Walking home, a sense of clarity washed over him. He wasn't merely binding the pieces of his past together, he was allowing himself to reshape what it meant to live without anger. With every step, Jake felt like he was emerging from the shadows, no longer just a product of hurt, but a man determined to redefine his narrative. Time would tell what the future held for Jake, Eric, and Dan, but one undeniable truth lingered long after that moment. He was becoming someone new. The echoes of fear anchored in memories began to reshape themselves into lessons learned, opening doors to possibility. Change was no longer just a destination, it was unfolding within him every single day, an active pulse driving him toward a future where he could thrive in understanding rather than violence. Each confrontation was a stepping stone toward accepting all that he had been and all that he would choose to become. With a new depth to his resolve, he understood not only the necessity for accountability, but the courage to embrace it. The journey ahead would require more than he had just courage. It would necessitate vulnerability and active engagement with those he had hurt. But he was ready, not just for himself, but for the life he envisioned, resting firmly on a rekindled sense of identity built on empathy rather than hostility.
Jake took one final breath as he entered apartments, ready to embrace the night with a renewed sense of purpose. He was well aware that the road was still long, filled with the challenges of self-discovery, but he faced it with the steady resolve of a man who knew he had the power to reshape his reality. Each step now felt purposeful, illuminating a path illuminated not by fear, but instead by the light of hope. As the night deepened, Jake felt reborn amidst the chaos of his past, fully equipped to handle whatever lay ahead. He had made a choice. He would fight not only for his redemption, but also for a future rich, multifaceted, and built on the understanding that true strength emerges from vulnerability. The journey was just beginning, but he was ready, always ready. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, ensuring more powerful tales come your way. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's journey and how it relates to your own life experiences. Lastly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.